My name is Tibor Jakab, coming from Romania. I'm doing art photography and photojournalist too since 1988. It's also I work as a freelance photographer for several magazines, but I'm doing also art photography. I consider even the journalism art photography because I participate at many salons also with these photos. So it's a very important thing in my life, photography. I think the message of the images, the impact of the images. I always try to make images which have a message to the people. I consider that an image without a message, why should we take it? Just to have it? So I always try to transmit people a message through my some feelings, some mood through my pictures. If I cannot, that means that my photo is not good, so I have to throw it away or just keep for myself. I always try to find out other people's opinion about and to notice if the photo has transmitted the message or not to people. This doesn't mean that I'm doing and stick with this purpose, so I'm doing just for this photo. No, I am doing because I'm feeling to do this, and this way I try to do in a traditional way, very traditional way, not to arrange anything, to keep the pure reality, not even to crop my images, so all my images are 100% what I saw in the viewfinder, so I want that the viewer would see the same thing as I've seen. I never manipulate the photos and arrange the photos to put some elements or some persons for a greater impact. Maybe it's good, it's wrong, but I consider that this is better, not to do fakes, to do real to show real things, to document real events and real people. I think this is the key. I am a person who travels a lot, and everywhere I feel at home. It's very important. Maybe I'm lucky. I always find nice persons in each country. So always I find a few, not all. It's not important to have all, but to have a few persons which I consider my friends, and I feel good, and I always feel at home. So some people say that they feel at home just in their country where they are born. I don't say that. I'm at home in each country, and where people love me, I'm at home.
So you're a citizen of the world?
Yes, I consider it, and it's rubbish to stick at some things and make some. It's like the photographic language. It's universal. It doesn't matter from which culture or from which country you're coming from. It's important that you give the message to a person from a different country, with a different language, with a different culture. And it's much more important that you make yourself understood. As I told you, I'm old-fashioned, so I always look at real, old times, real photographers, journalists, from the 40s, 50s, when they have not so fancy equipment, but they had the eye. And when you look at these photos, you still have the impact after 50, 60 years is the same. I can say that my photos taken 20 years ago, I can, not just I can, I still sending to different salons, and they compete with nowadays photos, and they are successful. So a classic way of taking photos in a traditional way and the traditional point of view, I think will survive to all tendencies and all trends. Now, a few years, it was the trend with these modern things in Europe. So all the photographers wanted to make some modern things just to be successful. And it lasts 1 or 2 years. That these photos, you were looking and you didn't see what's in the photo, but everybody was very successful. I didn't even try to do this. It's not me. I will never do this. I will stick to my point of view, my seeing the people and the world, and I will do this way of photography. And I think this is the better. Everybody can find his own way and can keep his own way. I have different category photographies taken in the same way, totally different, not social, nude photography, architecture photography, published photographies in magazines, nowadays magazines, in the same way, the same style. So I think it's important that to have your own style. So if you have your style, that somebody is looking at your work and recognize you in your work, this means that you are a mature artist. So you have your own style, which everybody knows or sees from a new, even in a new photo. Looking at a new photo of you can recognize your style and you. And this is, I think, the most important thing. And not to make photos just because this is the trend. It's important to be yourself, your own personality in it. No, usually I managed. I didn't have any bad experience. I learned from photography an experience for whole life, to read people. So I can see inside people. And this is, I think, very important. You look at a person and you see inside. And from that moment, you can communicate with the person. You know how to approach the person. 99% it works. Of course, there are always exceptions from the rules, but usually I never had this situation. I always, earlier or later, I communicate with the person. Even if first impact was a negative impact, I didn't give up. If I really wanted to have a talk with the person or to do anything, or to work with the person, so I always succeeded in this way. And I think this is much more important than just photography, to manage people, to respect, to love people, and they will respect you and love you in this way. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Starting photography in the years of communism, where everything was limited, censored, so on, made you all the time improvise, trying to manage with what you have. You couldn't think to choose films, cameras, lenses. You had something if you're lucky enough. So you had to manage to improvise all the time. So it was I think a best practical experience. So learn by necessity, as learning to be a survivor without having almost nothing, and to do photos and to compete, to be competitive. This is another mistake nowadays, that people think that the camera is important. No, I think the camera just helps you. It doesn't think, the camera. The person behind the camera is important, the eye is important, and how you see through the camera. So maybe somebody who has just a point and shoot camera can do more successful photos than somebody with the most sophisticated equipment. So, and the life proved this for me, that I really begin with very primitive. So sometimes people coming to my place and wanting to film my studio and darkroom, and I told them it's no use because it's not suitable. And when I showed them, they asked me that you're joking with us. And no, I'm not joking. This is where I work, and I can show you how I work. And it's good practice. So you learn experience, and after that, if you have better equipment, it's much easier. So it's just a routine for you to manage some things. Also with social photography, you have to think very quickly, to compose very quickly, because you don't have time. You cannot use lights, tripods, or something. You have to think in seconds. and to arrange composition as good as you can in seconds. So you have to know exactly how your gear works. You don't have time to set or to do anything, because people will change their attitude in this way if you put them and arrange them and change their place. No, that is the existing condition, so nothing extra, just the camera in your hand. Now typically 90% of my photos I take with now I work with digital camera. I'm as traditional. I prefer film and large film too, because it's a different sense. It's handicraft. It's manufacture. Even the quality of the photo nowadays, you can say that digitally and with Photoshops and so on, it's much better. But even nowadays, if you take a photo done manually, not so sharp, not so perfect exposure, not so well balanced, and you put a perfect photo made with digital equipment, with all kind of electronics and processing, and you compare somebody who is not photographer, maybe. We choose the manual one. Don't know why, but just having another feeling that is something different. And that's why I stick to film, and I still work on film, but of course I'm using digital. Now I work with a digital Canon 5D, and 90% of the photos I make with 2880 zoom Canon. And this is the basic equipment I carry with myself. And the flash. Maybe that, but I prefer not to use. I prefer to have different aperture or ISO or something. So not to change the conditions and the mood. Even if the photo has to suffer. But maybe it will be not so sharp, the edges or something, but it will have atmosphere. And this is more important, I think. Because most people try to make perfect photos. Why? Because if your whole intention is just to do a perfect, very sharp photo, you concentrate on that, you forget the theme, what you want to take photo. You are so concentrated, and with this modern equipment, with so many buttons everywhere, till you manage to fix your camera, you forget what you want to do.
Yeah.
Or the theme is already gone. It's already gone. So basic, it's I think, for myself, I use usually, if it's possible, 1 or 2 settings, the same lenses, the same camera, and I know exactly what the result will be. Don't experience, maybe when it's something which I can afford to experience, but just for fun. Usually I have my settings and I stick with them. I did the same in the darkroom. I had my basic chemicals, my basic papers, and one kind of film. I never switched, because if you switched, the result would be different, and I didn't want. I wanted the same constant result, and to be sure that the result will be what I want.